Isaiah Factor Uncensored starts now. And welcome to The Factor Uncensored. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's a hot topic around the country, but one we haven't talked about from this perspective. Immigration involving children, young children as young as 3 years old in court, defending themselves trying to stay into this country. Just this month alone, 25 children found themselves before judges in immigration court in Arizona. We talked to our expert about this trend that we're seeing around the country. And joining us now here on The Factor Uncensored to talk about this very disturbing topic is Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, from the owner of Lincoln-Goldfinch Law in Austin. Glad to have you here on The Factor Uncensored. When we first heard about this in February, many of us didn't believe that there would be children, teenagers, young people in court trying to defend themselves in immigration court. But now we're starting to see the reality of that. So what is happening in the courts when it comes to immigration and young people actually defending themselves, Kate?
Well, I'm sorry to say it absolutely is occurring, and it is heartbreaking, and we don't have a lot of video of it or evidence of it, which is why people aren't talking about it more. But we do know that the Trump administration is cracking down on children, or unaccompanied migrant kids, as they call them, and that the lawyers who typically have funding to represent these kids in proceedings have lost all of their federal funding and aren't able to take cases, which means these children are going before the judge alone, and they walk into a courtroom, they don't have anyone by their side, and they have to go and sit in front of a judge with a prosecuting attorney and somehow figure out how to defend themselves. And it's unimaginable, really.
And some of these kids, I'm sure there's a language barrier. First of all, for them to even understand the legal system at, say, 4 or 5 years old, even 16, 17 years old before they're adults, and then there could be a language barrier. I mean, that's too high of a hill to climb for a child.
Absolutely. I remember when my own daughter was 4, as an immigration lawyer, I was thinking about this issue, and I conducted a mock hearing with her and went through the script of an interview. And I asked her, where are you from? Where do you want to live? Why do you want to live here? How do you respond to the allegations? And her answers were, the nonsensical answers of a child. Oh, it's pretty outside. I'm from Boston, which wasn't even true. It was just a city that she knew the name of. Mm-hmm. And this is what actually happens in these courtrooms. They're just kiddos. They're kiddos. And ultimately the outcome is their entire future and their safety. And somehow they're supposed to know what they need, be able to communicate it, and also convince the court of it. And it doesn't function. And unfortunately, we don't have an administration that cares about these children. We've seen them attempt to deport hundreds of Guatemalan children in the middle of the night and only be stopped because of a court order. So these children are in the hands of an abusive government, and they are being terrorized and traumatized.
For those who say, well, I simply don't believe you, there's got to be video, there's got to be photography, but they know, I'm not sure they're aware of the rules when it comes to the courts, especially federal courts. You're not allowed to do any photography, any filming, any pictures in court. And so that's why many of you guys don't have any evidence of that. And then if an attorney decides to take a picture in a federal court, you guys could be called in and be in a lot of trouble as well, right?
Oh, yeah. I have a friend who lost her law license, her ability to practice, for 6 months because she had a cell phone in an immigration court. It's very real. And remember, these are kids that don't even have lawyers. So who's going to video them? There is no, or I shouldn't say none. There was a documentary about this that was put out a few years ago. And so you can find some clips of it. But there's very little to no evidence of what goes on in these courtrooms. And I only know of it because I have talked to children who have gone through it and families who have been put through it. And I know what it looks like in that courtroom. But it's a big, mystery for most people. And I wish that we would have a lot of video evidence of it, because I think it would really, really impact people to see those images.
And I'm sure those who may not have an agenda, that being immigration judges and prosecutors who are doing their jobs, have got a feel for this too. There's a kid there defending themselves, and they may be powerless as well in the court system because they're just doing their job. They don't want to be terminated. They don't want to be sanctioned. So they've got to be feeling the pressure as well to go up against a kid in a courtroom.
I don't have sympathy for them. I think that there are a lot of jobs out there in the world, and all these ICE agents, and they say you could pick another job in a minute. So if you're doing something unethical, immoral, something that makes your stomach ache a little bit because of what you're doing, then quit. Then quit. It's that simple.
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We're talking about a very disturbing topic where young children, as young as 3 years old, finding themselves in court defending themselves before an immigration judge. Let's get back to our expert. Now, we know the Trump administration pulled the funding, so attorneys are not being paid. Are there any attorneys out there willing to volunteer and say, let me just do what is right here?
I would say the best places to support are organizations that have projects that support these kids, organizations like the Florence Project, an organization called Vecina. In full disclosure, I sit on their board of directors, but these are orgs that have projects and programs that support these children.
And what's the likelihood that these kids are successful in court?
Oh, very low, because they're children. And so, and without an attorney, even an adult doesn't have very good chances. And so the story out there that they're telling people is that these are kids who have been trafficked or lost and that they are protecting them. And that is not the reality. The reality is that many of these kids are unaccompanied kids who are put in the system, and maybe they went to be with their families and disappeared, and they didn't communicate with immigration because they had been previously detained or traumatized. But the Trump administration goes after detaining and deporting these kids, and then they turn around and tell the American people that they're saving them or rescuing them from traffickers. And that's not actually what's happening on the ground. Certainly hasn't been my experience. So I think it's important that people understand also the narrative that you're going to see from the other side and why it's not true.
How do you reconcile that as an attorney, where in your job in the courts, the truth is justice, the truth is the most important thing when it comes to defending someone and getting at the heart of a matter. And then you have, according to you in this situation, an administration that's just lying to the American people. Yeah. How do you reconcile that in your mind as an attorney, where truth is on this side and the American public is being fed something that's just mind-blowing?
I mean, people talk about what gets them out of bed in the morning. For me, it's this issue that immigrants are being terrorized and traumatized, and they're good, hardworking people who contribute to this country, and they make this country better. And that we have leadership over this country that's trying to convince everyone that they are evil and lawbreakers and dangerous, and they eat pets and all sorts of ridiculous things. And that we have got to combat the narrative. And I hope that it does the same for most people who know the truth, because that's the only way we're gonna combat this.
And Kate, you mentioned two organizations earlier that may help young people like this maneuver their way through the federal immigration system. Are they still open for business and able to take donations? And if you can give those names again, if they are.
One of them is the Florence Project. And the organization that I sit on the board of is called Vecina, which means neighbor in Spanish.
All right. Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, who is an immigration attorney in Austin at Lincoln-Goldfinch. Thank you for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored. Just a disturbing situation. We appreciate your time tonight.